what your journey in life has been and your background.
Thank you, Annie, and thank you, Tex. I've felt very supported by the two of you. There's just been warmth as I entered, and as I made my proposal to do this talk, I felt so supported by you all. And there's a reason that there was no bio, and that is, it's not about the bio. We show up as we are. We share our experiences. The interesting thing that I'm finding is we may all have big life challenges, but as different as our challenges are, it seems to me that we come to the same learning by walking a path that helps us to learn what we have to learn. And so today I'm going to share a little of my experience, but much more than that. I am a lecturer at a university and I don't want to lecture. I would like to interact with the people who are here because I think there is so much of a shared experience. And it is to pull those shared experiences out and see how each person's understanding builds the other up and builds a common foundation for this age of enlightenment that you spoke of. You said it's a century in which we are going to be enlightened. And I felt at a deep, deep level that it was that you were saying this century is going to be about awakening, but truly coming alive is what I read in your words. And that feeling of coming alive depends on connection. And that lies at the heart of my message today. So I'm going to start sharing screen, but they are the most basic slides because they are intended just to hold space as we go through. Okay. Are you all seeing the slides?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yes, I made the effort to actually make a little graphic using the World Unity Week image because this is done only because World Unity Week made it possible. And so the event is titled Coping with Our Isolation in the Pandemic or as a Special Needs Parent. And I'll introduce myself and you'll see why the as a special needs parent comes in. But what I've learned is so many people are sharing about feelings of isolation, being separate from one another, feeling lonely, feeling lost. And that has been exacerbated in this past year. And that is making so much negative experience be core to how we live our lives for some people. And as I listen to my clients, my students, my friends speak about how isolation is affecting them, I feel what I've felt as a special needs parent and what showed up as a big theme in the book. And I'll introduce the book as well at some point in this talk. So this is the Whole Self Nurturing Room, and it's being curated by Tex and Annie in a very warm way. Really, this is the image I wanted to share, which is an image that when we experience isolation, we experience a lot of heaviness and darkness. But darkness doesn't happen unless there's light to compare it to. And so in speaking about coping with our isolation, I want us to acknowledge the darkness that we feel, but I also want us to acknowledge how we get to step further into the light, and that truly is the way out. And it seems to me that it's the answer to everything else as well. So my name is Dr. Marcia Nathai-Balkissoon. I am not a medical doctor. I have a PhD in industrial engineering. And industrial engineering is all about systems and processes and finding patterns and things. And so I've treated my life challenges as an opportunity to look at my life as an experiment and see what habits, what patterns can I discern, and how do these patterns repeat in other people's lives. And then I see that I'm not alone. And that's been how I've healed myself with this feeling of isolation that I've been in. Before I get into who I am anymore, though, the important thing is to get to know you. So, because the talk really only brings benefit if it fits your context and if it fits what you experience. And so I wanted to open it up to you, whether by chat or verbally. Tell me a little bit about who you are, please. Are you at home? Are you retired? Do you have a business now in a second or third life? Are you working? Maybe we have special needs people here or special needs parents here. If anybody is interested, feel free to let me know how you would define yourself and your context. This morning, I listened to some of you in the opening, and I think a lot of the people here have a Montessori background, are very interested in becoming enlightened and have had a journey of enlightenment. I saw one lady who was a poet. I saw Annie's son-in-law, who is an amazing pianist. And I think he may be a parent, I wasn't sure. In Annie's and Tex's case, I know they are grandparents and very loving ones, because I've been stalking Annie and I saw some photos that Tex put up showing me 3 generations or 4 generations of people in her family, and Tex talked about his grandson this morning. So with the big circles that you all have around you, have you all been seeing that people are complaining of feeling more isolated now? You can give me a nod, you can put it in the chat. And how much experience are you all having, especially in the Montessori system, of seeing more and more people who are labeled special needs? Because over the decades, more and more people are being handed a label. This defines you. You are special needs, you are different. I have a different take on things. I don't see now that special needs people are apart from all others on the continuum of humanity. I don't consider special needs to be a separate continuum and then everybody else is in a different continuum. There's a continuum of humanity. And I think many of us who have not gotten that label of special needs also have special needs. They aren't labeled. For example, without these, I can't see to my nose. That's as special a need as it can get, because I'll be practically blind without them. And there are people who, as they age, their jobs take away their hearing. Slowly, slowly, you get hearing loss. Or just because of aging, your hearing declines, your mobility declines, etc., etc. And so this talk was created not just for people in the pandemic. but for people who have been told you are special needs or you are a parent of somebody with special needs. In my case, if I had to define who I am, I exist in many different elements and they all come together as one. So it's very hard for me to separate and say I am one thing. But I am a lecturer and a practitioner in industrial engineering. Even in that regard, though, I do not teach in an engineering section of a university. I teach in a social sciences faculty, which is the weirdest thing, which engineer teaches in social sciences. But I teach to the social scientists things like health and safety management, quality management, the things where we cross over from social to systems and to logic and to numbers. And that feels just right to me because we are a combination of our left brain, which is logical, and our right brain, which is creative, which is intuitive. And embracing both is critical for us to be our fullest selves. The thing that has defined me to a large extent for the past decade has been my family. And that is because back in 2012, my daughter was 8 months old and she became brain injured.
Hey, Marcia, I hate to pause you right there. Would you like to go to the screen now so we can see you other than just a thumbnail sketch?
Sure.
I think it would be, yeah, great. It's really good to see everyone and see you a bit better.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's better and you can hear me better as well.
It's wonderful. Yeah, thank you.
So my daughter Emma in 2012 was 8 months old and went to do open heart surgery because she had been born with a problem that had gotten bad enough that she began to be at risk for stroke and seizure. It was a very routine surgery, but not possible in my country, which is Trinidad and Tobago. And so we had taken her to a place in the States that does thousands of these. It was routine. And everything went well, but Emma was recovering in the ICU when a doctor pulled the wrong tube out. And she bled out and she flatlined for 20 minutes. Brain injury typically happens about 3 minutes into not getting oxygen to your brain. So about 2 weeks later, when she was not really coming out of a coma except for seizing, an MRI showed that her whole brain had been wiped, and we were told that she would be vegetative for life. So that was, it felt like putting all our dreams for our children in a box and being relegated to a life of darkness. We definitely felt fear. We were told to withdraw food and allow her to go, was what they said. We did not feel that that was the right thing because we had prayed for her to come back at 20 minutes and her heart had started back. And so one does not pray and then say, oh yeah, it will be inconvenient. Emma's been a light to us, a big, big light. And she is no vegetative child anymore. A big part of that has been because we learned that if our hope dies, then all hope for her dies. And so our job was to find hope, to find a way to be resilient and to persevere. And that started by educating ourselves. Where typically people don't live past what she's lived through. So there weren't many practitioners who knew what to do. We were discovering for the first time. There were no books that were going to tell us, this is what you as a human will encounter. And there was no manual to tell you, take these steps and here's what's going to happen. the one manual we had was the doctor saying, there is no hope. She will be an adult and she will still be in a bed, unable to move, speak. She had lost all her senses and ability to swallow. But sometimes people come here for a purpose. And I think that Emma's purpose was to teach. And the miracle for us is that Emma is teaching without ever learning to say a word. She doesn't speak and she doesn't see, but she hears now. And she lives in joy. And in her living in joy, I've learned that I used to see Emma with a lens of what she had lost. And I used to feel pain because of what I perceived she had lost, until I wrote this book last year. And in writing the book, the lens dropped away and a new one came on. And the new lens showed me that what I was mourning, my child was not. She was living her life fully and joyfully. She was waking up every morning and laughing as the birds chirped outside, laughing and kicking her legs, which she had learned to move, when she heard her father's voice. She prefers daddy to mommy. And people say, don't you feel bad that she has learned to say dada? She has 5 words. They do not include anything close to mama. And I feel joy because my child has learned 5 words. It doesn't matter if nobody else understands those 5, I do. Those 5 are dada, hello, because we should never leave her in her room alone. So she'll go, hello, and everybody must come back. Dada, hello, alala, and alala means I love you. And ati, which she applies to me, but really is for the nurse. And so people come in and they say, you know, Emma, it's mommy's birthday coming up. Won't you say mama for her? And I'm like, you know, drop these things. I don't care. If my child prefers my husband, that's something to celebrate. She can show preference. She can show choice. That means she can process. That means she can choose. If I have, and I do have, 5 playlists for Emma, and if I say the words to her favorite songs and she begins to kick, and if I hum the tune to the song and she kicks, then that's language reception and the ability to recognize tunes. And if I sing the 3 amens of the Presbyterian practice, which is what I am, and she goes, ah, before I say amen, so now we take turns, and that's her favorite thing to sing. Then I have not the same things to celebrate as anybody else, but wonderful, miraculous things anyway. So that's the joy that Emma brings. That's the teaching she brings. That she is enough. How dare I judge her as not enough? That she's a miracle. And the lesson she teaches is the lesson I've captured in that book. So let me see if I could share screen and show you the book now. The book is called Lighting the Path. Emma's name is Emma Lucia Priscilla Balkissoon. It's a very long name, but her name actually means Ancient Universal Light. And that's what I feel she is. I did not want anybody else to be going through what we went through without having a hand to hold. And so Lighting the Path was written to hold the hand of other special needs parents so that they would know, even if they were doing this alone, that they are not alone. and to share with them our experiences, but to show them how to change that lens from the darkness that we feel. I do acknowledge it in the book. I do delve into it in the book. But then we help people pass that so that we end on a chapter that's about resilience and hope. And there's a chapter set inside of that book that speaks specifically to isolation. Isolation emerges in the pandemic, as I saw people, my students are young adults, and they told me, I'm just not coming to class. I'm curling up in my bed and I'm sleeping all day. I don't feel connected to my parents. They don't understand me. And then my friends, the parents, are telling me, I don't feel connected to my children. We do not see eye to eye. I feel so isolated because I'm locked inside of a house. I'm all zoomed out. And so many things trigger isolation in us. Crises like a pandemic, crises like a lockdown, feeling overwhelmed by all that's on our plate, losing our loved ones, and a lot of that has been experienced in this period of the past year. Changing our relationships, you lose a relationship, somebody dies. I have a teenage son, he's 14. And his values may not be the same as my values when I was 14, nor should they be. But that was a hard lesson for me to learn, because I thought to be a good person, you had to be a carbon copy of me. And in judging that, I also felt isolation, because you worry and you feel, I don't understand my son, he doesn't understand me. And instead of moving together, we move apart. The other thing is this tendency we have to judge ourselves, to compare ourselves. And when we compare, we might find ourselves feeling like we lose confidence and we can't show our true face to others. And in hiding, we put on masks or we state ourselves. And that means that we deepen our isolation, because yet again, we're making choices not to connect with others. And it leads to us feeling nobody understands me, nobody truly sees and understands and accepts me, I'm unwanted, I'm unheard. The interesting thing to me is that the isolation that the average person feels in the pandemic is mirrored. This is the mask wearing. I'm crying my eyes out. I'm feeling so hurt, but I feel that the only way people will accept me is if I paint a picture of perfection and show that to people. And that's the curation of social media as well. But in terms of special needs people, special needs parents, they also experience isolation. And strangely, it's the exact same. We might see the group as different, having different characteristics, but the feelings boil down to the same thing. I don't have enough time. I'm always chasing the next thing on my list to keep my child going, to work, to see about the rest of my family, etc. So I run out of money, I run out of time, I have no energy, I don't get enough sleep. And all of these things immerse me more into feeling I'm alone in this world. I'm not supported. And therefore I summarize that I'm unworthy. People have left me alone because I'm not good enough. That's how I felt when friends and family moved away. When Emma was hurt, what I did not understand is that this is just the sense making I've come to for myself. Nobody came for about 3 years. And all of a sudden, when I was most broken, the people I thought were so close to me no longer showed up. My husband stayed, and that was a blessing. And he's more than just somebody who stays. He sacrifices. He's constantly there and active. And that's a blessing. But my social relationships disappeared. My family relationships, extended family, disappeared. And I concluded because of that, that I was not loved and not worthy to be loved. I had a lot of guilt over that. I felt, why are you not worthy? What is it about you that people don't want to show up for you? I blamed myself for my child's hurt. I was terrified of the future. And of course, with a sick child who had meltdowns, who was throwing up all the time, who had 2 dislocated hips, plus brain and heart injuries, you can't take them out because they also at high risk for infections and all the other things. So nobody understood how terrible our circumstance was. But we also didn't tell anybody because you feel like you can't complain and you can't talk about your negative situation, or else you'll be burdening somebody else. So you keep it to yourself. And because you are doing that, you are stuck in a house by yourself. Your child is growing bigger and bigger, harder to move around. You remain stuck in a home by yourself. Your funds keep getting drained. And people say, so why don't you pay to go to a psychologist and talk? Because I don't have funds to go talk. Because I don't have 20 minutes, much less an hour to go to somebody. So all of these things, they stack on top of each other and make the isolation harder and harder. And so now that we understand the dark side of isolation and why it happens, and we could identify, you don't have to be a special needs parent or guardian to say, yes, I've felt this. I used to think it was unique to special needs parenting. I'm not seeing that anymore. But it is a special kind of darkness, I think, for special needs parents, because the healing of that child is not going to come in many cases. In fact, the child might be deteriorating over time. So if we could wave a magic wand, what would we hope for when we're in this isolation? We would hope to suddenly have these problems disappear. We would hope to find light in our lives. And hopefully we'll get to how I could help that magic wand to be waved and actually put the wand in your own hand. And the answer is, if isolation is the cause, then the cure is to reverse it. And reversing it comes in many ways. Physically de-isolate ourselves. And that might be hard because you may not be allowed to go out, like in our state of emergency here in Trinidad and Tobago. Or you might not be able to go out, like if you have a child who depends on you to stay 24 hours. You may have to do some mental remodeling. You definitely have to do some social remodeling. And you are going to have to train yourself up emotionally. Now, the biggest part of that is the self-judgment. You have to be willing to release that tendency we have to judge ourselves and say, but when I look at somebody else, they have it so much better. But yet again, you've made a mistake, you dummy. That's the way I used to talk to myself. So listen to your needs and make but the word you never say. My advice is list your particular reasons that you identify as the causes of isolation. And then say, okay, I think I have not enough time, therefore I can't choose me. And take one small action. Doesn't have to be that you need 2 hours to go to dinner with your husband. It could be that you choose 10 minutes in the morning after you open your eyes, or 10 minutes just before you go to bed, to meditate, or to draw, or to do something for you. So in my case, I love art, but I don't have time for art. So I make bookmarks. They take me half a minute, 5 minutes. But these are the ways that I get to express my feelings and connect to me. And I don't get to say I don't have enough time, because I've sat next to my daughter while singing and made those bookmarks. So I still get to choose me. I'm just adjusting the way I live my life so that everything else gets ticked, but I don't push me off my to-do list. And that's a skill. When we are overwhelmed, the person who goes first is us. All our priorities are the forgotten ones, the ones that 2 months later you look back and say, 2 months ago I intended to, and it's still not done. If you don't, you've heard this in the pandemic, if you don't put your mask on first, then you can't help other people. If we don't do self-care, then we don't get to help other people. Plus, if I don't find the right way to live, I'm not modeling the right way for my son. He's going to live overwhelmed and not choosing himself, because that's the model that I'm teaching him every day of my life. So I don't have enough money. What can I do? I can change my priorities. I can just accept. Let's just talk about one thing. Let's say that I need a crane to lift Emma from the bed to move her because she's getting bigger. And I can't afford it yet. One is that I said yet. That says, okay, Marsh, I can be gentle with you. The facts are the facts, so beating yourself up doesn't change the fact. So I can't do it yet. And then I come up with a plan. How am I going to change things? I'm going to change things by writing a book. I'm going to change things by starting a business. I'm going to change things by talking to others. I'm going to change things by building a community. What is your solution? Because while I do all of those things, I've dealt with number 3 on this table. No friends, nobody visits. Guess what? Life did me a favor. If I did not have true friends, if the love that I had was not true love, then we purged the people who didn't belong. And now the people who are coming back into the community are the right people. And so maybe I don't physically have people coming, but I have a huge online community. And connection is connection is connection. It doesn't have to fit a mold. So we change our mindset there. There are different ways that I can serve. There are different ways I can connect. And when we connect, what happens to our energy? Suddenly we get pumped up with energy. Suddenly we forget that we're tired. Have you ever gotten a phone call when you were really tired and about to go to sleep? But it was a wonderful person on the phone call and you ended up talking their ear off for an hour? Where did your energy come from? I saw Viola talking and talking and talking a while ago. Viola talked because Viola had energy and she had a message to share. If it was a boring thing, she would say, I'm too tired, I can't stay on any longer. Find something that resonates with you. Find something that aligns with your purpose, with your message. And suddenly, that's your countering action sorted out. And the I'm not tired excuse disappears. And I feel that way about special needs. I feel that way about dealing with overwhelm. I feel that way about stepping into joy and fulfillment. Because we are made for more. And so that has been the reason that I've found the time to work until 2 or 3 every morning, because there's something important to me that gives me energy. So what's the important thing to you? After I fell off my to-do list, the other thing that fell off the to-do list was my love relationship.
Marcia. Oh, okay. I just wanted to make sure you had another slide or something. Yeah, rather than,
Yeah.
Okay. No, you're good.
So also it was about rebuilding relationships. Rebuilding relationships with my son. Showing him that his sister, although she was hurt, was not the only important child I had. And making time just for him. And that didn't happen in the first few years because keeping him alive was our priority. But now we have found a little more balance. And then, of course, building back a relationship with my husband. So the answer, as I see it, to counteracting or coping with isolation boils down to 3 C's. Connect. And there are 5 connects here because it's connect first to self. Connect with your family right around you. Connect with other people like you, whatever it is that you define yourself as. So for example, if I say I'm a special needs parent, connecting with others who understand what I'm going through helps healing and beats back that isolation. Connect online in communities and then connect publicly. Find the ones that connect with you. You don't have to do all, but which one really, really appeals to you? The only one that I would recommend that you do, regardless of who you are, is connect with yourself. You first need to understand yourself and accept yourself for that light to be able to shine in. Second, do not live in a box. Communicate your story. Give yourself permission to open up the windows, lean out and tell your story, as scary as it is. Because in telling your story, you're going to find people who need to hear it. And telling them that story and supporting them also heals you. And the third one is a lesson of gratitude. You may not be able to see your child go through the developmental stages like everybody else, but that's a man-made rule that your children by age 6 need to be able to do certain things, that by 5 months they should be doing certain things. My daughter is Emma, and Emma turned 9 in March this year. Emma is not yet developmentally 1 year old. But my child has started to track when I pass red across her eyes. My child, who everybody said is blind forever, is now tracking red and yellow. So to me, big tick. And my child hears, and she's starting to take turns to sing, and she's raising her hand when she wants another kiss. And it doesn't fit in any textbook on developmental stages, but I threw away those textbooks a long time ago. Every little change is a miracle to be celebrated. And so in counting those blessings, I've started to say I don't feel isolated anymore because I'm not comparing where my friend is at with her child. And I'm not measuring my progress as a good parent against that. I can listen to a bird outside and I can say, thank you, Lord, for that bird, because it reminds me of so much. It reminds me of freedom. It reminds me that you are providing for a bird and therefore you are also providing for me. And I write catch a star because that's about affirmations. See what you want. Reach out and grab it. Believe that that is meant to be yours. And build your affirmation as an action-oriented affirmation. I am this because I'm doing this. So it doesn't seem, so I say, I am fit and I know I'm not because I look down at the pudgy tummy. And that feels like a lie. So I started, I am getting fitter every day because I'm making better choices. That I can own. So we have the permission to change our affirmations to what we need. Those are the 3 C's that I think are the secret to coping with isolation better. Whether you're a special needs parent or just anybody else who's dealing with isolation. Last thing, immersing yourself in positivity really matters. And finally, I want to immerse you in some positivity. You don't need to go out to do this, but if you can, it certainly helps. If I tell you take a walk on the beach and feel the sand under your toes and feel the water coming up and splashing over you, and listen to the birds and listen to those waves coming splash and wetting your toes. Listen to the children's laughter as they run away from the waves. It transports you to a joyful place. The beach is my joyful place. And every time I do this kind of visualization, it turns into a meditation for me where I'm actually walking and feeling. But it takes me back to when I was 8 and on the beach with cousins and sisters and my dad and my mom. And suddenly, even in the midst of my isolation, even in the middle of crying, I will stop because I've been transported to a place where I'm held and loved and supported. Take your mind and move it, even if you can't take your body and move it yet. And if you can take your body, then definitely do that. If it's not a beach, maybe it's a garden, maybe it's a mountain, you find your happy place and move there. And you can do it. You don't know my beach, but you just move there with me in 2 seconds. Play. Adults often say, I forgot not to play. Playing is nonsensical. I feel ashamed to play. I don't. I love to blow bubbles. I'll chase bubbles any day. What is your way to play? Create. Immerse in nature. And smile. If you force your face into a smile, it actually forces good chemicals to flood through you, and that smile becomes real. Your frown lines fall away, and you genuinely smile like this lady. So even when life is having you down, force that smile, and you can change. That's how we reverse isolation. This is a quote from the book. It comes from chapter 3. I am certain that the ultimate cure for isolation is connection with yourself and with a community that shares your values. Finding heart-centered connection is the sword that will defeat the isolation dragon. That's the end of the presentation. And so I open up now to chat. If anybody has questions or comments.
Nice. Wow, what a journey, Marcia. It's just, in some sense, you know, really not my reference point in some sense, although, as you say, you know, we can recognize the markers of isolation, you know, as a culture in these days, and for sure we've all experienced it to some degree in these days, including myself. But wow, your journey as a parent is really very special, and it's really received with, great respect and gratitude for you. Again, transparency. I mean, this morning has been so rich through that kind of very personal sharing. But you do find, I mean, certainly we've all been through challenges too. I mean, it might not have been per se isolation or dealing with a special needs child, but definitely appreciated your sharing of what came out of that, how we do become stronger people and have, actually my sister was reminding me, I went through kind of a trial by fire with my family about 6 years ago, just some emotional stuff, that was dealt with and happenings and all that. And I developed a 3-part mantra: no expectations, forgive all, take care of yourself most of all. And, that was just something that, after months, if not, a couple of years of wrestling with it. And as you say, talking with my sister through it, over and over again and trying to figure this problem out. One morning I woke up with that 3-part mantra in my head, and, I just tried it on over and over. And it was really interesting going into this week, which was going to be quite challenging, Yeah. And, she said, well, remember our mantra. And I hadn't thought of it in a while, but they do become our anchors, so I really appreciate you sharing both the initial experience and just what that is, what your life is, but then what the fruit of that has been, what the anchor, if you will, your anchors that have emerged. I'd love to open it up. I don't know. Do you know Sherry? Is Sherry someone connected to you? Okay.
Yes. Hi, Sherry. Thank you.
She's here.
I think Sherry may be at work and tuning in.
Sorry, I am. Hi, guys.
Hi, Sherry.
I am working and listening, so I do apologize. It was So I had this conversation with Marcia before. I would have met Marcia virtually. Marcia, what, about a month and a half ago?
Maybe about 3 months by now.
3 months, you think?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so we would have had this conversation and this sharing, as to what had happened with Emma. So I started following Marcia, and I believe that she would have had a journey where she came to this place of realizing, almost self-taught in terms of how to cope, how to deal with issues or challenges and whatever. And as you said, Annie, everybody has a different experience, probably a child, it could be anything, that you kind of have to find a solution in terms of accepting, moving on. And I have many of those. But, yes, because like Marcia, I think culturally here in Trinidad and Tobago, families, we were brought up to be strong, to deal with issues. You're basically told, you just have to focus, get on with it, not really toward the tools of coping. And probably that's universal because, our parents weren't as in tuned as we are now, or we are forced to be with everything that is happening around us. Not just the pandemic, but, as you have children growing up in a different era, you have to understand yourself better. You have to understand them. You have to find tools. You have to, equip them. And that forces us to learn. So I am quite grateful for Marcia's sharing. And, I don't always have the time. Marcia knows this. I don't always have the time to share. But, I like it because it also helps, to voice how you feel, but also what you think you should be doing, or what resonates with you. And sometimes learning from other people helps um, with adjusting your own expectations of yourself, mostly because I think as women, we do have very high expectations, and we set the bar very high for ourselves, especially, women of today. We want to be career women, we want to be professionals, you want to be respected in your field. You want to, give back, you want to be the best parent to your children, and you want to be the best wife to your husband, and so we do set high standards for ourselves, and sometimes we fall short in our own eyes, and that can affect us. So I do appreciate the sharing, and to know that I'm not alone.
Cherie, thank you so much.
Yes.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
It was my pleasure to see somebody from home too.
Sherry, are you still there for a minute? I was going to feed something back to you. Yeah.
Okay.
You just reminded me. I mean, I have 3 grown daughters, and I definitely see, especially the 2 that have children, trying to juggle that whole thing. Well, my eldest daughter has a almost full-time job, and but I just remember a Jewish rabbi once that I was in a little. I don't even remember what we were doing exactly. He was teaching us somehow, and he was just moved to tell us that I think he may have only had 1 daughter, but how much his heart went out to young women, that he just saw so much that juggle. And I hadn't been reminded of that in a while. I mean, definitely, especially as I say with my oldest daughter, I see that that it is quite something. All the roles and expectations, because we still do tend to put a lot of the mothering off on the woman, and that expectation. We have that because our mothers did it, and so then we put it on ourselves. And I was a working mom too, and a single mom. So anyway, I just want to honor you in that. And
Thank you, Anne. That means a lot. I mean, the fact that we are online, social media tend to kind of allow us to see other women in different countries and cultures, um, and realize that we all have the same challenges, and for some reason, traditionally, women didn't really support each other. So I'm really glad that we are able to do that now, even if it's in small parts, because we tend to feel, insecure about sharing, because you're not sure if you can trust people with your personal business or whatever it is, we tend to hold on to from the past. But then when you start sharing, you realize, hey, this person has the same issue or had the same issue, and this is how they dealt with it. And you don't necessarily have to do the same, but you can learn from other people's, experiences. And I believe that as women, we need to really do more of that and create these safe spaces where people can open up and share. Because, I I grapple. I should say the word grapple. I grapple with, sometimes, is life for me. I am a career-driven person. And then being a mother, you want to be the best mom, you want to do this, you want to do that. And once you do all of that, you tend to lose yourself, who you really are. And you look back and you ask yourself, you know, I never used to like this. Why am I doing this now? And it was just through adapting to your situations, you didn't realize you changed who you are.
yeah.
So I really don't want to lose myself, because I do have two young daughters, and one just turned 13 on Friday. And that is, I think, the biggest issue on the forefront for me. As Marcia, you would have said, isolating. We tend to retreat um, until, like, I would do that. If I'm upset, I tend to retreat and deal with it. And then eventually it becomes too much, and then you blow up, and then it just starts. You have to repair. So, you want to teach the girls something differently. Um, so I have to, look at that. Because as you said, when you isolate, you tend to create a wider gap, and you're thinking you're coping with it, but the gap is just widening. Um, so how we reconnect? Um, my husband and we were having this conversation on Sunday, with children being a product of their environment. And, we were brought up, I'm not sure Anne and the others on the group, if you all would have experienced that, to the extent probably we did in the Caribbean, where you're beaten into submission, you do something wrong and you get licks. And you don't do it again because you're afraid of getting licks. But we can't do that with our kids now. And they are growing up in a different era, but we're also, um, raising them for a very different world as well. So how do we equip them with, you know, the tools? I like to use the word tools because it's stuff that we use to deploy who we are in this world. But how do we bring them up in such a way that they are good human beings in a different world that we don't even know as yet, you know? And when you look at it now, we have not been equipped to peer on these children for that world. Um, I feel that we have not been equipped to even live the lives that we live right now because our parents didn't have that foresight. So we are, you're kind of grappling, you're feeling your way around to find answers and to find solutions and to be the person who would create the environment that is conducive to your children,
Yeah.
being equipped to live in a different world,
And that's the answer going forward. I think it is all about being in this learner mindset and saying, I don't have to have all of the answers, but I'm going to do the best I can, whatever comes my way,
Right.
and others will be there to give me some help as I go.
Yeah.
So I'll pass back over to Annie.
Oh, I'm just seeing if we have 15 minutes till we begin our next wrap up of our morning, kind of. So I didn't know if maybe Viola or Tex has something they would like to add in before we kind of take a short break.
Well, thank you. I did write in the chat that Marcia's sharing is abundantly powerful and inspiring. But I'm calling Emma and her parents, Marcia and her father and brother, my best prayerful intentions, because I understand that you are a prayerful family.
Thank you.
And it's very special, your sharing. It just happens that my eldest daughter came by and I didn't know, because normally she's not coming by around like that, and I was alone there. And all of a sudden the door opened, and then she's coming up and she's asking me if I'd like a cup of tea or something, So as a parent, you feel blessed to have that attention, but I also shared what you just shared, like very briefly with me to her, you know, because we it helps us to have a better sense of gratitude also, and to appreciate one another, because too often we lack patience with each other, and but especially the eldest daughter, like she's seen me at my worst as a parent, and but I felt a bit redeemed when the other day she said that she wrote actually that as parents we didn't have a manual on how to be good parents, you know, and from what Sherry said, I mean, like, we're replicating what our parents was doing to us, and now, you know, and I tell my daughter, especially the eldest one, because she thought we were being like coddling the youngest. I said, no, it's good that you've noticed the difference, because we've been proved as parents. So it's not that we are spoiling the youngest one, you know, it's just our parenting that's improving. So it's very good that you notice. Anyway, thank you, Marcia, and thank you, Sherry, also.
Is it Viola or is it Viola?
I'm sorry, can you say that again?
I'm just asking how to say your name.
Viola's fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm reading Viola's comment. She said, I'm thinking about this phrase, when the pupil is ready, the teacher appears. And she says, I find myself in that situation, thanks to all of you here, Emma included. That's like magical language to me. Thank you, Viola.
Thank you so much. It was beautiful. I couldn't stop crying the whole time.
I appreciated your presence.
The faith that you and your husband, I mean, were the grandparents involved in the prayer for Emma, or I don't know who it was, but I definitely
that was
that.
Yeah, that was the middle of the night, and Sean and I just saw their hands they had cracked her chest, had their hands on her heart, and they kept trying to massage, and her heart wouldn't start again. And so Sean and I held hands on the floor outside the ICU, and we said, we don't know what else to do, so let's pray. We just said, the prayer was something like, you know, God, I've been praying all the time for me to accept your will, but I can't pray that anymore. Give me back my child. And the machine started. When you have nowhere else, you lean into God.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's our miracle.
Yeah. Yeah. The power of hope and your trust and faith just to feel like such a major factor in that entire story. Thank you. It's really moving. Really moving.
Thank you. It has been a pleasure for me, an honor for me to present here. Thanks to those of you who did come. And if you are watching a replay, thank you for showing up. I would love to hear your comments and to support you if you need some support as well.
Thank you, Marcia.
Bye.
Thank you so much.